Today on Locked On Rockies, busy start to the winter meetings as arguably the most interesting Rockies offseason is off to a quick start.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 9th day of December in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, then guess what? You can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. If you also want to take the show on the go, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel and so much more. You can also join our new Everydayer Club. I'll tell you more about that later. But until next time, folks, until that, I should say, we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the winter meetings here and the Colorado Rockies. It's going to be a really interesting next couple of days. It's going to be a really interesting, basically just a week or so of what's going to happen. And we got a lot of information here starting things off from this first day of the winter meetings for the Rockies. A lot of kind of buzzworthy things, nothing necessarily jumping out the page as like, whoa, this is groundbreaking, never before seen something crazy type stuff. But we're getting some really good looks and really good insight into who the Rockies are trying to become. And I think that's a good sign. So anyway, you can I want you to let me know here as well. What are you really hoping to see this week? As this continues to be the Rockies filling out their coaching staff, is that some of the big news that we got to talk about? New pitching coach. Is it trying to go out and fill first base? Is it trying to make some deals? We got a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with the reports of a new pitching coach for the Colorado Rockies here. And it's the some of the early buzz. Again, another move that seems positive for the Colorado Rockies here. It's obviously got to pan out, but it's another thing that signals the Rockies are going in a different direction. So let's dive into everything here and more on today's episode. Before we go any further, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Okay, so Alon Leichman, I'm hoping I am pronouncing the name here, is reportedly going to be the Rockies' next pitching coach. Thomas Harding breaking the news here late on Monday. Multiple major league sources, the Rockies plan to name former Marlins assistant pitching coach Alon Leichman as their new pitching coach. The club is still forming its coaching staff and has not made an official announcement. With the Marlins late last season, Leichman was part of a strategy of calling pitches from the dugout. While not speaking of anyone specifically, Rockies president of baseball operations Paul DePodesta said many interesting and innovative ideas have been bandied. And this is some more insight into that from Renee Deckhart from Purple Row here. And just to give some more insight into Leichman's career. Leichman's coaching career began in 2015 with the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox in 2015. In 2016, he was recruited by the Dodgers as a coach for their instructional league, then spent some time in the Mariners system there from 2017 up until 2022. And then in 23, he was then hired as an assistant pitching coach for the Reds, and then the Marlins picked him up for the same position in 2024. And Spilly says, this would be a huge win for the Rocks. Alon sees the game different, is creative, and passionate. Leichman's also coaching the Israel team for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. So it's more insight in there from Renee Deckhart. And again, I think one of the things that jumps out to me about this move and something that I hope is the case here is the idea of looking at the game differently. Is the idea of looking at a guy that can analyze and break down the game and look for ways to be successful and utilizing the information and data that they're given. Because one of the things I wanted to relate this to is DePodesta was making the rounds here on with media to kick off the start of winter meetings, and he kind of talks to Sirius XM and MLB Network on the radio there, talking about how that there's more to do here. There's some more options here, and to just kind of really dive into the data and the numbers. And I think while that's a really simple and easy like cop out type of phrase, the pitching area has to be the place where you really invest in this, this right here, right now, this is the time to really start looking at pitching at altitude and the philosophy of Colorado Rockies pitching completely different. That's why I like bringing in Burns there, the as the GM to not only be able to work out with building the profile that will fit with Leichman's and DePodesta's analytical focus on the approach to pitching, but also again look at and talk about, hey, this is where we were able to really take advantage of Rockies pitching. When we came to Coors and we know we were going up against these pitchers, we attacked them this way. When the Rockies came to town, we would attack them this way. I think that this had these what the new look Rockies pitching coaching staff they have to be a really analytically driven team. They have to be just, it's not going to answer every question, but it's at least going to give you information that you can work with and react towards. You can't just sit there and say, limit weak contact. It's only got to be ground balls. We can only hit, ground balls, and we got to limit, we can't let these guys, hit the ball out of the yard, that type of stuff. It's about looking at all the different things that influences. It's about how do you figure out these different spin rates? How do you figure out the way pitches move differently at altitude and anything? But I really liked this answer about having to. He's being asked, is it just data? Is it just? Can you just rebuild the analytics department? And this is DePodesta, not Leichman, talking again to MLB Network Radio. And even he admits it's not just one thing. We can't just we can't just rely on the analytics. We can't just rely on just solely on the data, but they also have to kind of make sure that they're helping these guys that and as DePodesta mentions, these guys that they have in place in Colorado. How can they blend what they have and where they want to go? And I think through that like combo of the experience of what you've tried, what you thought was going to work, what you've approached in the past of pitching in Coors, mixed with a fresh look, a fresh perspective, a fresh set of eyes on the pitching philosophy stuff, mix and then kind of with the additive the additive to that of more in-depth analytic and analysis and investment in analytics. I think you hopefully can start building some answers and start building the profiles of the guys that you really want to have on your team. And I hope that looking at the game differently, as Spilly has mentioned, if creativity is truly going to be a factor or a part of the Rockies pitching philosophy, which I like, by the way, I really hope it truly is something creative. I truly hope the Rockies create their own identity that really is something that specifically works for them and is specifically something that they can find success with and replicate that success with. Hopefully they can start finding a model of successful pitchers and make it more of the norm. Make it so it's not a place where you come into and you dread as a pitcher, or you're so worried as a pitcher that not only are you going into a tough environment to pitch, you're also going into an organization that isn't giving you that hasn't been providing you enough and hasn't been working with you enough to help you see the game differently and take that game to the next level. We know how many Rockies pitchers have had to seek help from outside of the organization, and former Rockies who have gone outside of the organization to find success. This right here hopefully continues the trend of a different approach and a different philosophy here for the Rockies, especially when it comes to pitching. And I really like that Leichman comes from the Reds, who we know have strong pitchers, comes from the Marlins that we know have strong pitchers, spent a ton of time in the Mariners system here, where you're talking about Mariners and Marlins. What are they known for? Awesome starting pitching. And the Reds have had some real great and real solid quality starters as well. This hopefully continues to be a job where innovation is going to actually be encouraged. And it hopefully with a hire like this, the Rockies are committing to saying that this is another thing of, hey, we know it's only 2 months, 3 months down the line or whatever, but this is us showing that we're committed to going in a different direction, that we're committing to looking at the game differently, that we're committing to looking for answers in different ways, that we're committed to catching ourselves up and start using what other teams have been doing to find success. And again, it's all sounding good and dandy here at the winter meetings, but I think this is building up momentum for at least the most interesting Rockies offseason that we've seen in a while. As the momentum starts to build here with the Rockies building out their coaching staff, building out their front office, and moving on from some of the players on the roster while setting a standard here. There was a lot more quotes for us to dive into here from stuff that happens at the winter meetings, and this news of the new pitching coach, not officially official yet, but early buzz about it does make you raise your eyebrows and say, okay, another move that's intriguing here. Another move that suggests the Rockies are looking at something differently here. And I really hope that we can start seeing here, maybe as we get closer to spring and maybe as we get through the winter meetings and stuff like that, what is actually looking different? What is different about the approach? What does January and February look like as you're ramping up and gearing towards spring training? Warren Schaefer out there at the winter meetings talking about building the relationships with everybody and building up the team and yada, yada, yada. But it would be nice to start seeing like, hey, this is what we've been doing. It'd be really nice to see when spring rolls around, we hear from some players saying, this is what we did differently this offseason. This is what this is what we've been looking to add. This is what we've been looking to do. Instead of, usually in the past, we haven't done this, but the Rockies have, through Leichman's, philosophies and coaching style, they've been bringing this to my attention. So I was able to add this and work on this in the offseason, and I'm really hoping to use and grow on it and grow with it here in spring. We're hearing and the moves, some of the moves the Rockies are making are suggesting that innovation and change are coming to this team. But unfortunately, we still have a long way to go till we can really believe it. But at least the thing's still trending in a positive direction. How optimistic are you? Let me know in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Let's continue our recap of the first day of winter meetings for the Colorado Rockies coming up next on today's episode. Before we do that, though, folks, got to let you know about the good folks that help make our shows possible, and that includes FanDuel and the NFL Sundays. They move so fast. One big parlay, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And, hey, it's been an exciting time for the Broncos, an exciting season, and a lot of close games. And you can get in on some of the exciting action, like maybe, Bo Nix passing yards. One of my favorite things to do, a nice Cortland Sutton anytime touchdown. There's always seems to be some nice juice there. Doesn't hit all the time, but it's a nice little one that I'm pretty confident in going each week. Well, with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, prop bets, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Locked On Rockies, back with you all here for segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Find us on those favorite streaming services. Find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Be part of the show. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know your reactions to the Rockies. Is it just me, or does it really feel like there is an actual legit buzz around the Rockies? And that's because there's a, how can it get much worse? It was inevitable that all this change was happening. You needed all of the, of course it seems obvious, but it still kind of seems like some of the things that the moves that they're making, some of the decisions that have been made, it's generating at least a little bit more intrigue for this podcast host. And I'm curious if you all feel the same as well. Obviously, it's still a lot of lip service, right? And I don't want to just say that as a complete negative thing, but the jury is still very far out. There is still so much work and there's still so much to do in order to start really fixing things with the Colorado Rockies. But I as much as I hesitated with DePodesta, I'm not as hesitant in the last 2 major moves that the Rockies have made for big positions within their organization. I think the GM hire and I think the pitching coach hire are strong signs that the Rockies are going to be looking at the game differently. And if they can utilize the strengths of Burns and Leichman, they should be a better team. They should be a better organized and a better and hopefully a team that performs better, no matter what it looks like. And that is with the talent on the team and with the talent that they hope to acquire and put on this team. I still think, when success is it's not going to look very good overall next year in terms of win-loss record, but hopefully it's going to it's going to be trends in the right direction. And it sounds like with the last 2 moves, the Rockies are looking for a solid change here, that they are approaching this differently. And that is building some encouragement with me. That is making me feel a little bit more enthused about the direction and where this team is headed. Now, it can immediately change, and there's still a lot of factors, and certainly things are going to feel a lot different once the games are being played. But at least at this point in the offseason, and after all the change and the question marks that we had and how long it took for the Rockies to bring in DePodesta and really start filling out all this stuff, I at least feel like a new – do you feel like at least a little bit more of an identity of the Rockies is forming now versus the past, I don't know, since the Trevor Story, basically in the last 3 to 4 years? Because again, I think the Trevor Story thing was kind of a prime example of just what do we want to do? Will we, won't we? I think that might have been the last, one of those, real blaring moments for us to consider of how bad things were going within on the front office sides. But at least we're starting to kind of the pieces are starting to feel like at least they're formulating a little bit more together. And it feels crazy for me to say that, right? To just sit here and say, how can you say a new identity is forming when they don't even have all the hires in? These guys haven't even been on the job for a month. Are you crazy? You're getting way ahead of your skis here. You're getting way too excited. And I agree with you. I do agree that I think I'm being a little I'm acting a little hastily by making a statement like that. But I just feel like at least we're hearing more about what the Rockies want to do and who they want to be, instead of just the same generic type of stuff, boilerplate stuff that during the Bill Schmidt era, it just was like, okay, I don't expect the Rockies to make tough I didn't expect the Rockies to make tough decisions. I didn't expect the Rockies to really shake things up or be open-minded or keep things keep doors open for possibilities or for to get involved with other teams. Whereas this year, we're seeing the Rockies make some choices, moving on from some guys and not tendering contracts and waiving guys and things like that. We're seeing them, start piecing together what this new look team looks like here, and that includes the front office, of course. These are, at least we're starting to see some stuff, because the last couple of off seasons were so slow and so void of news and so void of anything that felt any different than for the Colorado Rockies. I just maybe it's just because I'm glad that there's more things to talk about here, but it does seem like this team is finally starting to work towards crafting an identity, because I really don't think that they've had one since the playoffs, where the identity was we lean on our stars and we get enough from our star and we're getting good enough pitching from our starters. And it worked then. The Rockies haven't had anything close to an identity, and hopefully we're starting to see one form. But as much as I want to sit there and say that things are seemingly starting to fall into place, and maybe we're getting an idea of who the Rockies are going to be, we're way far off from knowing that still. Just like everything else, with what are they going to do? Are they actually going to follow up this? Is this actually their plan? Are they going to make moves? Are they going to be aggressive in these areas? That falls just into all of that speculation, right? Because there's still so much work to be done. There's still so much time, and there's still so many issues or so many things to fix and figure out before we can even start really committing to the idea of, oh, hey, the Rockies actually have an identity that's forming. But we'll see. I think, maybe a baseline, maybe a foundation, maybe some inklings, maybe some possibilities are starting to form here for the Rockies. All right, let's finish up the show by reading a couple more things and a couple more headlines from the winter meetings. I also got to tell you about the Locked On Everydayers Club. That's coming up next. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. And folks, not only is it prime time for the football, and we got the basketball, we got the hockey, we got it all. Guess what's coming back next summer? The World Cup. And it's coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when your seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Folks, this is possibly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you here. So why not get a great deal and know exactly where you're going to sit, because you got a seat view right from the app there when you're making your purchase, and you got all the fees up front. You know exactly what you're spending. You know exactly where you're sitting. You know exactly what you're doing for one of the biggest sporting events of 2026. You got to be there in person. So why not take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Gametime? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go Gametime. Back at it here, segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level. Go ad-free and join the Everydayer Club today. Get Locked On Rockies with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can head on over to lockedonpodcast.com/Everydayer Club to learn more about that, and check it out right there on our website. Figured out, and ad-free, good stuff. Hang out with all the good folks, all the hosts in the Discord there. Get talk about not just Rockies there, all sorts of your favorite podcast, sports and more, especially. And hey, if you're listening to Locked On Rockies, good chance you're probably listening to all the other great Locked On Colorado sports there. All right, a couple of headlines, or at least quotes, I think is a better word than headlines that I was retweeting here, because there is a great group of Rockies media folk down there, really, I was talking about buzz, energy. I mean, they are probably feeling a little bit more excited to be down there for the winter meetings this year, considering the Rockies do. There's a lot to be asking. There's a lot of questions to be asked. There's a lot of information that folks are looking at for, and they were dropping some nuggets here throughout the first day of winter meetings here, and let's just go over a couple of them here that I saw on the Twitter's verse as well. Of course, like we said, Alon Leichman being hired here for the Rockies pitching coach, reportedly not official as of recording, might change in the morning here, might change later tonight, not sure. But anyway, does seem official. Harding's tweeting about it. Other sources have tweeted about it. Certainly just seems like one of those things waiting a official club announcement there. So one of the things, and here's what Christian Saez from DNVR Rockies. D. Podesta says that he's currently speaking with free agents regarding the Rockies' first base position, as well as starting pitching. Also added that there has been interest in center fielder Brenton Doyle. Says he's received calls on a handful of players, but says Doyle is a popular one right now. That's going to be fascinating. Fascinating. We talked about that last week here before I headed out of town for a little bit. Keep your eye on the Brenton Doyle situation here, because there's some other quotes here that we'll kind of follow up on, and maybe again kind of go back to our idea of the Rockies changing their mind on how they approach stuff like player trades here. Kevin Henry of the Denver Gazette, Paul D. Podesta on potential trades. We're not actually looking to move any of our players. We're looking to add to this roster. But we have to be open-minded if people are really interested in some of our players and what that might bring us. That's a boilerplate basic answer, certainly. And it also starts with the caveat of not looking to move from currently from our players. And I kind of pumped the brakes there, where it's just like, I appreciate you might be, saving face by saying you like the guys that you have, but at least you follow up that saying we're staying open-minded and we're going with the who's going to make it. What if we do make a move, how do we make our team better, and be open-minded to that? That might make sense. It might make sense if a lot of people are excited about Brenton Doyle to move on from Brenton Doyle, if the deal is right. I still personally think that for some of these Rockies players, for the position players specifically, you really are kind of you're flipping the coin, right? Of they could have a great first half, really beef up that value, help out a little bit more, versus like, an awesome first half for Brenton Doyle makes him way more interesting than where he's at right now, where the question marks still surround him there. Also from Christian here, we want to build a roster where our younger players have to earn their at-bats. There aren't going to be at-bats given away just because we don't have anybody else. That's what Paul D. Podesta also said. And that has to be a stand. There does need to be a new level of expectation for the Rockies. The Rockies have to be they have to set the standard here of our expectation is success. We're not just throwing you out there to see what sticks, and that's certainly what the Rockies, they were faced with that last year with the roster construction and everything, and where they were at. They had to see. That's why so many guys made their debuts. So many guys were called up. So many guys were put in situations. So many people played first base. So many people played third base and second base and outfield. But the standard has to be you earn your spot by your success. And I do think that that quote can kind of lead a little bit to maybe the Rockies actually are going to be more aggressive in free agency than we think. Maybe the Rockies, they might not spend huge. Maybe they're not going to go spend big, but they might bring in multiple guys to say, guess what? We don't, I didn't draft you. I didn't scout you. I didn't look at, I didn't follow everything. You have to prove it to me right here, right now, that you're better than this guy that we've brought in. You have to demonstrate and you have to show me that you can go up and be a consistent and successful major league ball player. Jordan Beck, this is your time. You have to knock the doors off. Mickey Moniak, same thing. Like the Rockies were in a situation where everything was a mess last year. The roster construction was certainly a part of it, but that I do like that the standard should be you earn your spot. You earn your time. You earn your opportunity, a la Hunter Goodman. Hunter Goodman had to compete with Jacob Stallings, who was going to be viewed to be the starter for the Rockies as the catcher. They brought him back specifically for that. And then Hunter Goodman said, no, I am playing my way and I am forcing my way into the lineup every day, and you cannot stop me. That has to be the mentality, and that has to be the reality for some of the young Rockies guys. Let me know what your reaction was there to a busy first day to the winter meetings and where you think the Rockies stand. I think, people might sit there and say, after listening to this, everything's already turned around for you. Everything's already, you're already this optimistic. You really think things are going to be all better? No. But I can't sit here and lie that I'm not liking what I'm seeing and being encouraged by some of the stuff that we've heard so far. But it's got to be backed up. So I don't know. That's just kind of that. It's just a moment where I don't want to let the idea of it being something new and something different completely take away from my hesitations and my concerns and my worries. But I'm a lot more intrigued about the direction and where the Rockies are going to go so far this offseason than I have in the last few off seasons for the Rockies. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let me know your reactions. And thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and make sure that you're checking out the Locked On Everydayer Club so you can get that ad-free audio and more, like being part of that Discord server. Check us out there and check out Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs if you need more Colorado sports coverage. And until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.